Palm Beach Atlantic University. Great place to be. We're going to open on time in August for our fall semester. Our students are happy about that. We did the online thing for a couple of months, and we're going to continue doing online as well, but nothing like being in the classroom with students. So we're figuring that out to make sure that we're all going to be safe. And of course, we pray and pray and pray for an end and to some, at least some help in one way or another. Titus Center has 30 to 40 students who are part of the concentration in franchise. They might be majoring in marketing or administration in franchising. And I'm not embarrassed to say, or afraid to say, they know more about franchising when they leave our program than at least a first-year franchisee would know about franchising. So they are ready to go to work at a franchise company or a franchisee company. 97% of them want to own their own business. So ultimately, that's what they're going to do. They're just part of that generation. And they're perfectly educated to do so because they get lots of information about franchising. They study franchising. They do case studies. They do a 90-hour internship. And wow, do we need internships right now. Used to be we didn't need them so badly. I've got students in West Palm Beach who are stuck, can't go home to Italy, can't go home to Ukraine, don't have jobs for the summer. I'm trying to find internships or jobs for them. Got notice from a student, a graduate from Orlando today, looking for an opportunity up in the Orlando area. If you want to offer an internship, please let me know, no matter where you are in the country. We're trying to get them developed and available for our students. If you've got jobs, and I know that there aren't many jobs right now, but they're coming, and keep my students in mind. One of the conferences that I'm thinking about doing is Hire My Students. You'll be happy you hire my students and you're a franchise company. These are sharp kids. It's a private university. They study, they're diligent, and they're very interested in franchising, and they see that as their career path. So we're also going to do a program in the future, sort of our own version of the Shark Tank. This was Ray's idea, in fact, so we'll give him credit for it. We're not going to call it Shark Tank. We're looking for a good name. If you got one, let me know. I'm still searching for that. Got lots of ideas. And if you want to pitch an idea, could be a concept that's already in development, could be a franchise with 6 franchisees or 60 franchisees, doesn't matter. We're going to give probably 3 people an opportunity to pitch, maybe 4, depending on the timing. And then we're going to have our franchise financier panel who will evaluate and maybe want to partner up, maybe want to acquire, or maybe want to tell you why you need to go back to work and work on your business and get it further along before there's an opportunity. Not so long ago, Andy Cagnetta did this, went to see Ray Titus. In fact, as I remember the story, Andy comes and speaks to our students. One of our, he and Ray are both, as you would guess, top performers in our classroom. Students always want them to come. And as I recall Andy's story, somebody told him before he knew Ray Titus to go see Ray Titus about franchising Transworld Business Advisors. And Andy sent somebody else to the meeting. Didn't even go meet Ray the first time. Well, then the union did occur, and Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage. And Andy and Ray have been partners for numerous years now and spreading the Transworld business concept across the United States, but also many countries of the world. And these Transworld folks, and we've got many of them I see on the list with us today who want to sharpen their skills on franchise resales. These folks are specialists in how to do a resale of a business. It's what they do every day. They've been doing it through the pandemic. We had a session yesterday about why, 7.5 reasons. We gave everybody 10 or 11, I think, good reasons to buy a business now. And the Transworld folks are on top of that. And Andy's going to participate with us today. Ray Titus, of course, everybody always asks me, what's Ray Titus doing? How's Ray Titus doing? What's going on with UFG? And I always say, even without checking in with Ray, because I know how Ray is doing, Ray's doing just fine. Continuing to do discovery days, continuing to sell franchises, bringing people back to work, helping franchisees sometimes sell their businesses, but usually helping franchisees improve their businesses. Ray's been doing this some 30 some years, starting with Sinorama, the flagship company. Now has, I lose track, it's 8 to 10, no need to keep the count usually, but 8 to 10, including a couple food businesses as well. But mostly, as you know, Ray, UFG, is in the business-to-business arena, very happily so, very successfully, franchises across the world. And of course, that means there are going to be franchise resales. Before I lose my momentum there, check in with me if you want to pitch a business to our franchise financiers. If you've got a good name for our program, we're not going to use Shark Tank, check in with me on that, please. But otherwise, let's get going on best practices, franchise resales. Good morning, Ray. Good morning, Andy. And let's get started. So the scenario, here's a scenario. I'm 70 years old. I've been a franchisee about 3 years longer than I intended to be. I really wanted to be retired, 66, 67 years old, but I was doing so well in the economy the last couple of years, I just couldn't give it up. I continued to plug away, and then, wow, I get hit by a Mack truck, a pandemic comes along, and I want to be retired. I don't like being out in the public now. I've got reasons to sell. What do I do? This is happening. This is not a far-fetched scenario that I'm sharing with you. Other scenarios, I've got health issues. Thank God I don't have the virus, but I've got some health issues in my family. And pandemic or not, I need to sell my franchise. And this is going on. And then in other cases, I just haven't been able to make it work. I haven't gotten it off the ground. I've sort of lost my momentum. I don't think I should be a franchisee anymore. I'm only 48 years old, but turned out this wasn't for me. I need to do something else, not the franchisor's fault, not my fault, just didn't work out. And of course, there are always those cases where, they say, the franchisee is going to say that no good franchisor. I was a franchisor. I ran We Buy Ugly Houses for a number of years, and I got cursed out lots of times for being that horrible, dishonest franchisor, when in fact, we were not. We just sold an honest business like franchisors on this call are doing. We provided training, we provided support, just didn't work. And that franchisee now wants to sell too. And what do? Can you do a franchise resale in the midst of a pandemic? Ray, Titus, take it away.
John, absolutely. First of all, we're doing it. So that's something that's happening, happened last month, happened the month before that. Last month we did 27 deals. This month we're on pace to do between 35 and 40. And those, there are resales included in that for all different brands. But, I have been working with Andy for over 10 years now. We're partners with Transworld, and I come from the franchise world, and Andy comes from the broker's world, and our worlds collided, and in a really good way. And it's been a fantastic partnership in building and growing the Transworld brand together. But I would break this down, Andy, into really three categories. John mentioned a whole bunch of different reasons for selling, but I'm just going to take the resale as it's a resale. It's somebody that wants to sell their business for whatever reason they want to sell it. I start with the pre-sale work that has to be done. So I am of the belief that many people lose the sale before they even start to try to sell it. The sale's not even made at that point. The business needs to be prepared to sell. That's really the first thing, whether it's, I know, Andy, you're real big on books and records and keeping clean books and records and going back 2 or 3 years. And, I'm really a stickler on cleaning the store and cleaning the location and making it really attractive for the resale. And, but as far as a list of those things, a good broker will always have that. And we have that with Transworld, as I know there's other brokers out there that do that as well. And so they should have a pre-sale checklist of things that need to be done prior to the sale happening. Andy, do you have anything to add to that pre-sale part?
Yeah, listen, I think selling a business takes a team. And part of the team, the added team member in a resale is the franchisor. And so if and most franchisors do not have a fully functioning resale department. And that's where Ray and I have come together to do that. And so you need a couple of things. You need the broker on the ground, which is Transworld. And we can, again, package the business, get it out there and sell it, because that's an everyday thing. And then you're going to need someone at the franchise level to coordinate the resale program. And if you don't have that as a franchisor, that's where UFG and their resale program can come in, because that's what it really takes. Someone needs to be managing the resale program on a national level, and that's what Ray does for us. And then we could be on the ground and doing the pre-sale and packaging up a business. And, the number one thing that franchisees need to do during the sale process is run their business. So even though there's this whole pandemic thing going on, which Ray and I have a lot of tools, Ray put our tools on his Reopening America website, reopeningtogether.com. And those tools are going to help a franchisee because they have to stick it out. They have to open and they have to get business going again. And then we can come in and help do all that pre-sale stuff, right?
That's right. And so, once you've prepared the owner or the owner himself on the call here is mentally prepared and has cleaned up the books and records, cleaned the location, and really sat down with, a trusted advisor, whether that's a Transworld business advisor or whether that's an accountant or an attorney or someone to kind of go through, an asking price and come up with a valuation of this business, which is a really important part because you don't want to price the business out of the market. And so you should be able to talk with somebody who has some experience in that regard so that you're not losing the sale prior to even meeting anyone because it's not set up to sell right. And so you've got to start with that first bucket, which is preparing the business to sell. And that all kind of goes hand in hand. But now we're into generating leads and taking the sale through the process, Andy. And, I know Biz by Sell, we list our listings on Biz by Sell, and we have a lot of, large databases that we go after, and franchisors have big databases that they can approach, and we could do that for them, or they could do that themselves and go after that. And so the key at this point now, I believe, is controlling the sale, because a lot of people lose control of the whole sale process. They'll let buyers just go to a location or a store and on their own and check it out. And I've just never been one of those because you don't know what they're going to run into when they do that. I think you've got to go and tour the facility. You've got to control the sale through this process and set up. Even in today, we're doing face-to-face meetings yesterday, today. Most of our meetings are Zoom calls and virtual discovery day tours, and we're utilizing the technology. But we have salespeople in certain states across the country that are doing face-to-face. We have a face-to-face discovery day tour coming in tomorrow. So things are opening up more and more and more. But I do think from the sales process that you've got to get control of the prospect and the sale. And the biggest mistake I see early on in this process is they go right to the opportunity. And if you're going to just sell that opportunity, meaning the resale, you're making a mistake as a franchise organization right away, right from the start, because the person has to be sold on the business and the company and the industry rather than the opportunity of that specific location. If you start with a foundation on the sale of getting somebody that gets a presentation, that maybe speaks to some successful people in the business, has a Q&A, gets disclosed, and we're introducing it the right way to the buyer as here's a potential that's within driving distance of you, at that point, it really goes very smooth. If you skip all of those steps and you don't sell the industry, they don't speak to somebody who's successful in the business, they don't get disclosed, they don't get sold on the company in the business, and you go right to the opportunity, well, the only thing you have to sell in that regard are the numbers. Now, in John's examples, if it's somebody that's done a really good job with their numbers and their P&L, then those are easier businesses to resell. If they have not done really well with their numbers or their financials, then those are going to be hard businesses to sell. They may be asset purchases, and they need to be sold on other things, which would be the business, the industry, the opportunity that's there. So I think there's a mistake where where a lot of salespeople offer the opportunity first, Andy, and then they try to backtrack and start to sell them on the industry and the company and all the other good things, rather than to just say, hey, that opportunity is there. Let's get to that in a second. Let's find out if this is the right industry, right company to do business with.
Hello.
Does that make sense, Andy?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's why it's a partnership, right? So there, the good news in the world is that, there's several people that have to make decisions in a business sale and be a part of the business sale. And I'll tell you, for the most part, what I've seen, one of the mistakes is franchisees being hesitant to let the franchisor know that they want to sell. Because from what I've seen at UFG over the years, and again, it's been over a decade, that Ray, Titus, and the UFG has been nothing but supportive of people that have made the decision that they want to get out for some reason, whether it's retirement or whether they're tired or maybe they're buying another brand, and we've seen that before. So I think that's a mistake, because partnering with the franchisor, yes, the franchisor is much better at selling the opportunity, and selling their company, and you got to get that packaging together and have that, and so there's several people involved in a business sale. One of the good news out there in the world is one of those people is a landlord. And over the last, 8 years or so, we've seen them be extremely tough to deal with. And so there's an opportunity now, if that 70-year-old wants to sell their business, there may be an easier opportunity to transfer that business in this day and age. And, there was plenty of buyers out there, but there's going to be more buyers now, because there's plenty of young people that are being laid off, and plenty of people that need to replace an income. And those are great franchise buyers too, because maybe they're coming out of corporate America or they're coming out of the military. They like following processes. So
yeah, I think so, Andy. You're so right. I mean, look, it's a partnership, and that partnership has got to be with the franchisee, with the broker, and with the franchisor. Because the franchisor, look, think about it this way. If the franchisor doesn't know the franchisee is for sale, and they get more leads for that industry or business, I mean, who gets more leads for Signorama? Signorama.com and our headquarters, or a local broker? Of course, Signorama does. So from our standpoint, we want to work hand in hand with a broker. We believe in having a broker because it opens it up to another pool of buyers, and to have somebody that can, really help the owner understand the value of the business and the marketplace and the comps in the area and everything else. I think it's perfect marriage, but the franchisor needing to be involved in that process, it's so important that we all work together.
What happens, gentlemen, when there are franchisors who, for whatever reason, are not held on their own? The brand is not a household brand. The leads are not readily available through brand.com, whatever that brand is.
Sure.
Franchisee is pretty much on their own. How are they going to get leads? What do you recommend?
I mean, Andy and I both sell brands like that every month. I have my own. We also have clients through Accurate Franchising that we help sell for them as well. So again, John, we're gonna post it. We're gonna get interest. We're gonna get leads. It's finding the right buyer. And Andy's right. There's a larger pool of buyers out there. I mean, let's face it, the last 60 days, more people have been laid off than any time in our lifetime. And so there are an incredible amount of good people out there that are not going to get rehired. And so the buying pool is huge. And that's why, I do a video each week out to our system. And last week I sent out one that had a clip from Mark Cuban saying this is the best time he's ever seen in his lifetime for somebody to open up their own business. And so I agree with that. I think the timing here, we have a window of opportunity on resales and new store sales between now and, the second half of this year is going to be like 12 months of business in the last 6 months of the year. So we see a boom that's coming. So the timing for the resale, John, to get back to the resale side, it couldn't be better for both buyers and sellers at this point. It's not a bad time. Now, obviously, a seller is not going to get the top dollar that they might have if we weren't in the middle of this or getting out of this in many states. But in the same breath, there's a lot more buyers out there to compete for those resales. So you've got both of these things happening, Andy, right?
Yeah, no. So, and Ray mentioned it earlier. There's kind of two pools of buyers out there, right? There's people that go down the path of looking for an established business for sale, and they usually don't get sucked into the other pool of buyers, that people who would start out saying, hey, I want to buy a franchise. And so what's nice about working together with us is that we have both pools of buyers. So if you're a brand, the original question was brands that don't have that pool of buyers coming to their website, that's exactly what United Franchise Group can help us do through their franchise resale program. And then on top of that, we have a pool of buyers that, as a franchise or even a franchisee just sticking your business on, you're not going to see this pool of buyers that we have. And we were talking about, valuation a couple of days, yesterday, I guess it was. We had Jessica Fiakovich, who I see, my partner in crime, is on the podcast right now. And we were talking about that some of franchises might even get a premium these days, because what we're seeing even at United Franchise Group and some of the businesses that have been able to pivot, again, tons of people, record amounts of unemployment, people who need to replace an income, they will, and there's only a certain amount of businesses, a subset of businesses that are thriving through this. And we see those businesses and pivot. Those businesses may sell for just as much money as they would have beforehand or more because of the competition. So
I think, Andy, it's a great point. And, as we look at this and we take this step to where we're going into, okay, now let's sell this resale. How do we go about selling it? And I think there's too many people, first of all, franchisors, John, that take a hands-off approach on resales. And I don't agree with that at all, okay? I do agree that we should utilize a broker to help in the process, but there is nothing wrong or, in fact, not legal for franchisors that don't get involved. I actually think you have more liability not getting involved in your resales than you do getting involved. And so if you have a buyer for a resale and you don't introduce that to the resale, you put them in a new store, I think that that's even worse than not getting involved and helping that franchise owner with an exit strategy. So, our point then is we want to treat the sales as if it's a new franchise sale all the way up through the process of finding a location. There's a lot of people that skip all these steps to get to the opportunity. And so they want to put in, so again, you have kind of two different strong opportunities. You've got one that's an asset sale, maybe somebody that's not making a lot of money in the business, or something in their life happened, a health problem, a marital problem, or something happened where they have to sell the business too soon, or it's not making money. And on the other side, you've got these profitable businesses that want to get a multiple and maybe they want to retire or whatever. So you really have these two extremes. And what I've seen is that the franchisors have a tendency to kind of sit in the middle and not help either party. And so it's kind of, it's remarkable to me. First of all, the brokers are natural for both. They can help in both cases. But selling these prospects on a new franchise first, and then introducing, if it's an asset sale, hey, here's a scenario where this could cost you less money to get in, or they already have an employee or two, or they already have a database and they've already done the hard work to get it up to a break even, or they've got some business and customers, and you're selling it from a standpoint of positive rather than the negative in the asset purchase.
Yeah. And I'll just add to what Ray just said. Every healthy franchise system needs to have an active resale program. And if you're not going to man the person yourself, you need to outsource it. And that's what we're here for. And we can certainly help with that, because you're going to have resales. And if you're not going to have resales, you're going to have closed stores, which is worse for your FDD. So what you're going to want to do is have a healthy resale program. And what are the statistics? 20% of all businesses change hands every year, which I think is way too high, by the way. But even at a franchise unit, you're going to have 5%, maybe even 10%. And if you're a struggling brand, maybe you're going to have more. Sticking your head in the sand is not going to work. So if you want to, and we've talked to major franchisors. Ray and I are talking to some major franchise programs across the world. I see my partner Henry Ziff is on, and here in the UK, and he talks to major franchisors in the UK, and we've met with them as well. Some famous brands that we're selling a lot of, and they need to work with us, and they need to have a good, healthy resale program to keep their franchise healthy. People are going to retire. People are going to get sick. People are going to want to sell, like Ray said. They're going to get in trouble. And we're
okay. So one thing I want to make sure we mention: we've got more than 100 people in the conference. They've got questions. Please use the chat. We're monitoring that. We'll get to those questions as we get closer to the half hour coming up. Some cases, let's get right down to what happens in many cases. The the brand has not been strong. The franchisee has been worse. And yet the franchisee developed something, some asset value that could be sold. But there's anger on the franchisee side, and there's reluctance on the franchisor side. Now, maybe, Andy, that's the perfect scenario for you. Maybe you get involved in those kinds of deals. What happens? How do you minimize the anger, the unhappiness of the sale, and move forward and still be able to find a buyer?
Well, again, that's, part of being an intermediary is being able to work with all those people and keep the emotions out of it. And again, it is helpful to have a partner like Accurate Franchising and Ray Titus, because, it's funny. They've used me to help them sell some things. And I've relied on Ray to, say, do you know this franchisor? And Ray's like, of course I know that franchisor. And, he'll pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, listen, let's get this deal done. And I remember Ray was selling a resale of a Sinorama in Texas, and the person instead wanted to buy a brand new one. But Ray's like, the best thing for the marketplace and the best thing for my franchisee is for me to do a resale. And I'm like, well, why doesn't he want to buy it? And so I said, give me the guy's phone number. Let me call him and talk to him about buying a resale instead. And I called him up and I gave him a bunch of reasons why he should move forward with the resale instead. And, both Ray and I's goals and that franchisee and the new buyer, was a win-win for everybody.
Go over those reasons, Andy. Why should someone, people, the franchisees on here who are trying to sell their businesses, franchisors who want to help franchisees sell, what are the good reasons for a resale? Many of them are obvious, but what do you say?
Well, I mean, even if let's go to the two extremes we talked about. Obviously, if they're making money and they're buying for a multiple, buying a business is a great, investment. And buying a business at a 2 or 3 multiple, and by the way, franchises sell for a little bit more than the usual market. Like Sinorama sells for a premium over regular sign shops. But even if it's not doing well, let's say the business is not doing well and it's, it's not a brand that's doing well. That brand has assets, and usually you could buy those assets at a discount. And in the case of, and we always say this, and I'll let Ray jump in now because I could see that he'll have good input on this, but we always say, is there bad businesses or more bad businesses or more bad business owners? And the answer is there's more bad business owners. So it's usually, I'm not going to, say it's not the fault of the franchisor or of the business itself, but most of the time it's a situational thing with the franchisee, that they're not following the system, that they're not putting the proper marketing in place, and they could buy that whole package. The franchisor wants them out, they could get a good deal.
Well, Andy, you're right. Besides the good deal, which is absolutely right there for the buyer to see and to get, obviously they have to be sold a new one first to know that this is a good deal. Because if they have no basis for looking at this and saying this is a good deal, based on what? Based on what you could get a new one for, or basically what other people are paying. But I would take it one step further and say, from a franchisor standpoint, I think the philosophy has to be to protect your franchise system. And look, there's franchise companies out there that will sell a new store. And they'll make more money on a new store sale short term than they will on a resale as a franchise company. But that is really terrible thinking, because that will ultimately destroy their system. What we need to do is take care of the resale first. And that's why, at United Franchise Group, we want to help our existing owners exit properly if that's what they want. First, we try not to have that happen and work with them and help make them successful in the business. But then if they want out, I don't want to put another new store owner in that marketplace until we take care of the resale. So we'll be more focused on the resale side. Even though we make less money initially, long term, we make more money that way, because the royalties have a tendency to always go up after a new owner comes in with a new attitude, with more working capital, doing more marketing, and focus on the business. The percentage of businesses that improve after resale are incredible. So for a long-term player, focusing in on the resale side of things is a really good thing. And I would.
By the way, I just want to emphasize one point Ray made, which is an excellent point. That's another reason why you want to talk to your franchisor before you do a resale, because it might not be time. Transworld wants to sell your business when you're going to get the highest value for it. And if you're in trouble, I've seen Ray and his team turn around more in my own system. We've turned around franchisees that felt like that they were going to close up, they're going to move away, and then the next year they are the most improved. They get these awards. They're in the awards show, and they stand up there and say, "Oh, thank God that I didn't sell." So the first thing is, we try to ascertain, should you even sell, and that's a great conversation to have.
Well, Andy, you're so right, because I met one of your brokers. Kind of
We're
funny.
both thinking of the same person.
Yeah, well, Randy, right? And so I'm at a franchise show. And somebody came and said, "Oh, I know Transworld. I really owe a lot to Transworld." And I said, "What do you mean?" And they had a tire business, and they had visited with Andy's broker locally in Fort Lauderdale, and he actually talked them out of selling their business at that time because the timing wasn't right, and they were going to sell it for next to for them it was going to be $300,000-$400,000 and get some money out of it. But it was a mistake, and he saw it. Now that business today is worth $8 to $10 million. And let me tell you something. When they look to retire or when they look to sell that business, I don't care what other broker makes a pitch to these guys. They're going with Randy and Transworld. There's no doubt, okay? Because he did the right thing by them. They'll do the right thing by him down the road. So, again, timing is key, John.
So do you both find prospective franchisees who are better off buying the resale than starting from ground zero? In the for more than 30 years, I've taught the A to Z's of buying a franchise at the live expos, as you both know. And there's always a percentage. There are 100 people in the room. There will be at least 10 of them who don't want to give up their job and go to ground zero and start building a business where they can pay themselves maybe in 6 months or maybe in 2 years. Whereas they have the wherewithal, particularly with a 401k rollover or other funds, they have the opportunity to go buy an existing business and they'll be a more productive franchisee. Do those people jump out at you, or is it just in a seminar that happens?
That's everywhere, John. I mean, Andy has that every day of his life, and I have that every day of my life, where people are either been laid off or they're currently working and they're looking for their own business, but they do not want to take a step back income-wise, or they can't. And so they look at an existing business. And, that's where a trans world would be, so valuable to someone who's looking to sell off a one-off business. The difference between, what Andy said, that's Accurate Franchising and that's trans world is, Accurate handles franchise systems. So if a franchise system has 25 resales or 50 resales, we're going to work with that franchisor with a report and coordinate with them. But then we're going to work hand in hand with the broker network with Transworld, where Transworld will be boots on the ground that'll sell the business. So if there's a one-off resale, Transworld is the play. I mean, that's the way to go. But yeah, that people are looking for existing businesses every day, right, Andy?
Yeah, that's what we do. I mean, most people who come to us are not looking to start from scratch. They're looking for, an opportunity to replace an income. And so we're showing them the resales for the most part. Obviously we refer them to Ray, and if they're looking in a specific industry, or if they're, wanting to have that guidance from day one on, on a startup, or they can afford a startup. I mean, like you said, a lot of people who wind up buying a franchise, the buyers are in a better financial shape because they can get SBA financing for a brand new franchise and or for a resale. And they're in better working capital shape than the existing franchisee and or someone who get, than the existing franchisee. And I'll make one point that, I don't know if we're going to make, but this is a time, as Ray talked about Mark Cuban, the reason why Mark Cuban says it's a great time is because there are going to be bargains out there. So if you are successful in a franchise system, you should absolutely be looking to expand. My cousin is in Express Professionals up in Chicago, and he just bought his first, he's been there for 10 years. He just bought his second location. Now, it wound up, he bought it right before this whole thing happened. But what happened is since he bought this new location, he got PPP money, and he's now able to cash flow this whole new enterprise. It's going to turn out to be an amazing opportunity for him. And just think about all the people that are out looking for work. So yeah, we're seeing that as well. This is a great time for franchisees to expand.
I think if you're a franchisor on this call, and you can take little bits and pieces from all of us, I think one of the first things I would do if I'm trying to sell a resale is go right to my database for the last 3 years, 5 years, or whatever it is, and have now an offering that you can put in front of those people. Because like you're saying, John, and Andy's saying SBA funding, but there's also seller financing and other opportunities in equipment leasing companies, and a lot of ways to get people into business that maybe they couldn't afford a new one, but now they can afford this existing business, and it's, maybe at a break even, or maybe it's positive cash flow, and there's some things that can happen to turn it into even more so from a positive cash flow standpoint.
Great. Again, from the franchisee's point of view, let's say the scenario is I've done okay as a franchisee, could have done better, but I did all right. Haven't done a good job of keeping my paperwork, my books. I have not positioned the business to sell it, whereas some of my counterparts who are franchisees from day one, they were building a business to resell it. You don't hear that attitude or that philosophy very often, unfortunately. I didn't do that. So I want to sell, but I don't know how. I don't even know how to prepare it.
John, that's...
And, can I, or do I need to go to Andy and get a broker who will help me? How do I get it? I don't even know how to get it ready to sell it, let alone find leads to sell it.
And John, a little bit, your technology's going in and out a little bit, but I heard the question, and I'll shoot out to you openly that from a standpoint of helping that owner, the Transworld Business Advisor will sit down with them and go through their previous years and help them recast those financials and kind of, but some work has to be done, right, Andy? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do every day. We take the mess that a business owner has been working on minimizing taxes, and we turn that into a good, a good looking package for a buyer to see what's actually going on. And, messy books and records, that's what we live with every day. I have some of our top franchisees on today. I have Rupesh Berard from Richmond area. I have Mike Berry from Indiana. I have Gary Goldwasser and Jessica Fiakovich from Denver. I have Art Warsaw from Salt Lake City area. And I have Gary Lengel, who talk about a guy who's been in the franchising resale business for 20-something years right here in Florida. So we have a team like that ready to meet with people. And again, this is not, I always tell people, this is not a sales job. I'm not going to bang a franchisee over the head saying, hey, I'm going to convince you to sell today. People come to us having made that decision. It is our job. We have professionals that'll sit down with them, ascertain what their value is, recast the books and records, help them understand what they're going to look like in the marketplace. And then only then, if we all agree, and maybe even the franchisors in that conversation already too, and their accountant and their lawyer, whoever it is, and we all agree that this is the plan and this is how we're moving forward, will we? Because we don't want to waste our time with someone who's not ready to sell at the appropriate marketplace.
So what's the best advice, Andy, to give to the franchisees on the call if they don't feel they are ready to sell, other than calling you or one of your partners, obviously, to do that, but maybe first touch base with their franchisor? And what do they need to? What do you want to see them prepared with to come and visit with you and to put them on the market?
Well, we have all kinds of tools out there. We have, plans like the bridge plan if you're having problems to get you over to, to come up with a plan. The number one thing I said way back is that they need to operate their business and become more profitable. We have articles like the 10 ways or the 12 ways to make your business more valuable in the future. And we'll meet with you. We'll meet with you now. If you want to sell in 2 years from now, if you're like, hey, listen, this COVID crisis, this is the third time after 9/11, after the economic downturn, after this COVID crisis, I'm willing to take the ball again one more time, get us to a place where we're going to, really thrive. And I think as opposed to this is a horrible crisis, but I think we're going to come out of this really hot in 2001, maybe even by, like Ray said, at the end of 2020, we're going to have a year and 3 months or 6 months. And so we're going to come out of this. And if they want to start talking to us now, and we're going to tell them what they're going to need, their books and records need to look like for the rest of the year into 2021. And if 2021 turns out to be as good as 2019, which a lot of people think that's going to happen, we're going to ignore 2020 and be able to get them the value that they deserve. But they got to be ready. They got to come back. They got to fight one more time through this, and we can help them.
I think Andy, there's going to be a lot of success stories coming up that I can foresee right here, just sitting here, and you're looking at this ahead and you're going, all right, here's a business that made it through the worst pandemic in 100 years. And here's a bit, that I can just hear our salespeople that are able to say, look at how strong this business was. Yes, they had a bad March or April or, whatever, but look at the recovery and the resilience of this business. And quite frankly, we have that in our food businesses right now. We have 2 food franchises and food has been devastated with, their dining halls have been closed and we're at 25% occupancy, but we pivoted those food businesses for takeout, for catering, for delivery, and now our sales on those businesses are better than pre-COVID. So if any of them wanted to sell 3 months from now, 4 months from now, whatever, down the road, they're going to be able to point back on this time and say, we made it through this, or this is how this business made it through that. And it's that much stronger because of it.
Yeah, we through the last economic downturn, we called them the survivors. And the survivors businesses, again, were valued higher than, because they made it through. And I was going to mention Great Greek and John Smith So, but Great Greek, specifically, people are looking for that dine out type meal for dinner that the Great Greek, has, and they have an overhead that is way less than some of these huge restaurants with these big footprints, and they were able to pivot. So things like, you're going to see brands like that do well. And I think some of these big box kind of brands, might be having a hard time.
Yeah.
What's the timing now for selling? Andy, in the last 60 days or so, sales are staying the same with your franchisees across the USA or throughout the world, or have things slowed down dramatically, and you see them picking up in the fourth quarter? And if I wanted to sell my business, should I be thinking of early 2021, or what are you seeing happen?
Well, it takes time and to sell your business, but there's kind of 3 buckets that are going on right now. There's the bucket of businesses that we just can't sell right now, like a travel agency, for instance. We had a travel agency for sale, and who knows when that's going to return. There's a bunch of businesses that are on hold to see what happens, when the economy kind of starts opening up, and say like the restaurants and some of the other businesses that are currently on. We had an appliance delivery business, multi-million-dollar business for sale, and that's on hold. And then there's a bucket of businesses that are going through right now and that are highly sought after. So we're closing those businesses quickly. So it's it'll really depend on what kind of business you have right now. But, and as Ray's about to tell you, and Ray's doing his updates on a weekly basis, and I am too. And things are changing so fast that it's like a daily basis almost, that we're, on a weekly basis, the market is changing so quickly. So I think, and Ray's talked about it too, I'll let him talk about that. We think it's going to pick up so fast that it's really hard to predict how long it'll take to sell your business. It does take time though.
Okay. I would add, Andy, that we received last month the single largest commission that Transworld has done in 10 years last month. So, I feel very, very positive, but I agree with Andy. It depends on the businesses. We're fortunate at UFG that we have a lot of those kind of businesses that are holding value or increasing, like Sinorama and Fully Promoted and Venture X, and some of our other brands that have done fairly well through this time. They had to go through that pivot time that everybody had to go through. I could tell you it was March 18th. That was the day for us. And where it's like after that, it was off the cliff. And then we've built up since then. And think about it. Everything has. The stock market went from 29 to 18,000. It's now back up to 25,000 now. I haven't seen it today, but yesterday it was just under 25,000 from 18. So, you're seeing it, that hockey stick that, they talk about in other things, and I'm not going to get political here, but we see a hockey stick huge in the second half for states pushing people out, reopening. That's why we started reopeningamericatogether.com. We see this push that it's just going to keep getting better and better and better, and the average sales are going up as well across the board. So I'm seeing more sales happening. Last month we did 27. I think this month we'll end up at 40. but conservatively 35 to 40. And then next month, we're looking to even do better than that. So I'm seeing that increasing as well, Andy. I don't know. Are you seeing the same?
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing. And Henry Ziff just chimed in. He got an offer on a travel agent yesterday. So I even try to pick an industry that's not going to do well. Yesterday, I talked about gyms, and I got some emails basically saying that, gyms we're selling gyms and gyms are great. And, people are looking forward to opening their gyms and getting back in that industry. So I tried to pick a loser or two, and it's hard. So I think that, what Ray is saying is absolutely true. The businesses are opening, things are rolling along. And if you're a franchisor on this call and you're not having increased activity, you should talk to Ray and his team. I mean, you should be having at least increased inquiries right now. And if you're not, if your resales are slow, then you definitely need to talk to us, and again, Ray, and myself will point you to the, appropriate franchisee to work with if you're a franchisor and you want to resell your business, because you should be getting action right now. And if you're
Andy,
not,
we have a question that's related to this. What's the increase that you've seen in businesses for sale since the start of COVID-19? Are there any, can you say that there's a monthly increase rate? And along with that, what types of businesses or categories are for sale now?
So I'm with Ray, right? So everything fell off a cliff. Everybody was in a waiting mode, sort of like after 9/11. Everybody just froze for a month saying, uh-oh, what's going to happen, right? So we're just starting to see people coming out. And I think, the PPP money is sort of delaying how many people are going to come out to sell their businesses because they got a little bit of money and they didn't really have to work. A lot of those people, they weren't at their work. So I think as the reality starts hitting, and you hit on it earlier, that people might not want to be in business anymore and they might be older. They don't want to be exposed to the public right now. So I think those numbers are going to go up. We've seen them increase every day. Again, it's changing every day. And we're getting more and more listing calls and more buyer opportunities. But we're still in the increase.
I think, Andy, what I've seen is that there's some people that are holding off on selling because of that. They got that PPP money, but also because I think the feeling out there is that they're not going to be able to sell it, or they're not going to get the money they want to get for the business, and they're wrong. They have to be talked to, and we have not seen an increase in resales. We have 1,600 franchisees in 80 countries, and in every one of our brands we offered royalty, either help or deferments or cutbacks on minimums and other things that we did to help our franchisees. I have to tell you, out of 1,600 franchisees, I think we only had about 150 of them take us up on any kind of help. So it was less than 10% of the owners that actually even took us up on these programs. So we pivoted. I think that's going to be something, Andy, that's going to come up that we've never had before, where people are going to say, how did this business do, and how did they change during the pandemic, during COVID? How did they change the business, and how did they embrace technology, and what changes have been made to the business since then that will make it even more profitable or better? And I think we're going to get a little more of that coming up that we haven't had obviously in the past.
That's a good point.
Okay, Ray, here's a question from a franchisor. Am I able to comment if the buyer of an existing store is overpaying for the business? My concern is the new franchisee will be over leveraged and will run into financial trouble. What do you do?
It's a really interesting question, because you're in a catch-22 in that spot. If you comment too aggressively in that regard, the seller is really not going to like you very much, and that's your current franchisee. In the same breath, you have a buyer that you're going to have to live with down the road. So that's why coming to an agreement on what the value of this business is up front with the franchisee is so critical, with having a local broker. And I know they do a great job over at Transworld with that. In the same breath, Our job as a franchisor is to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the brand long term and help our franchisees in that regard. And so we would work with them and massage that the best we could. But openly, you've got a buyer and you got a seller. And if the buyer's got it at a price and the seller's got it at a price and the buyers agreed to that price, that there are things you can do to step in and say, let's see if we can hold some of this in escrow. Let's protect the buyer the best way we can and work together in that regard. Make sure they have professionals that have reviewed the documents and everything else, that you can make some suggestions in that regard. But boy, is that a fine line that you're walking as a franchisor, getting in the middle of a sale. You have just as much of a potential of a legal issue with the selling franchisee if you blow the deal for them as you do for the buyer coming at you. So you're kind of caught in between the two. And I think this is where a broker comes in really helpful and takes the franchisor out of the middle of it. And what I would do in that case is just put Andy right in the middle of it. Andy would be my broker.
Yeah, and what I would say is, most of the times that I've seen people overpay for a business, there was no broker involved. And, and I've seen it before where we've been offered to sell a business and they've wanted a ridiculous price. And then, and we've told them, no, we're not going to represent you at that price, or we don't think it'll sell. And then they wind up selling it to some person that, stumbles along and believes what they're saying, and then they go out of business. So I would say to the franchisors, that's why you want a broker involved, because 90% of the time, our job, buyers always think, oh, the brokers are there to drive up the price. 90% of the time, our job is spent convincing the owner of what the realities of the marketplace and market value.
Yeah. Okay. And Andy, I would just share with them that what I've done and I've had, in 35 years of doing this, I've had a handful of those scenarios that were mentioned on that question. And what I've been able to do is step in and maybe require a note that the seller holds a note of some kind, and there's some holdback, and to protect your buyer the best way you can. But man, you're walking a tightrope in those regards.
And the other thing is, on some of these resales, again, and new franchises, the SBA, we haven't spoken about SBA financing. The SBA loves franchises, and most franchises, we spoke about it the other day, are on that list of approved franchises. And when a buyer buys a business with SBA financing, the bank that is sponsoring the deal, the lender involved, is making sure that that buyer has working cap. And so they're usually in pretty good shape. And again, SBA financing, the nice thing about SBA financing, it's up to 10 years. So usually the payback terms are reasonable enough for someone to not only be able to cash flow the business and take some money out for themselves and pay down debt service, but have enough working cap to survive.
Yeah. Another question, and we're getting close to the end here. Time flies by. Everyone knows that UFG has been historically a big proponent of franchise expos. Ray, your group, you're the biggest customer of franchise expos. So the question is, what are you going to do now, Ray? Are you online? Are you doing online expos? And are you waiting for the return of the live expos? And when do you expect that to happen?
The answer is yes and yes. I mean, we are, obviously, we are big into the trade shows. We believe in them. And so we're looking forward to the, restarting in September of the face-to-face trade shows that are going to take place with MFV and the trade shows. In the meantime, we've embraced the virtual trade shows. We've gotten, way more into social media, and as far as attacking our database and looking for alternative ways for buyers. We've always done that anyway, but we actually leaned on it a little bit more. Virtual Discovery Day tours, all our deals are being done, through electronically. In some cases, we've never met buyers face-to-face in that have gone through training school. And so that's through the whole system. We have some food businesses where we have had buyers that never tasted the food. and have come through and are ready to go because of the segment that it's in. And they were very excited about the reviews and everything else. But no, we've kind of pivoted our business, John, in regards to embracing the technology and utilizing our regional vice presidents. Michael White, our director of sales, has done an outstanding job with that and the team. And again, we mentioned SBA. I would just, mention, we have someone on the call, Tom Bosley, who does a fantastic job in that regard in helping people get funding and work with that as well. There are a lot of creative people in franchising and in the broker business, Andy, that we're gonna find ways to get deals done if you really know enough people and you search for it, or you get the right people on your team, like Transworld. That would be my first big recommendation is if you're looking to do a resale, let's make sure we get a good Transworld business advisor hooked up with you locally, and we have a high standard of ethics that we're going to hold them to, and they're going to make sure. And again, if that business isn't ready to sell, they're going to tell them that.
Yeah, and I would just add that every good deal out there in the world dies at least 3 times, and if you don't have someone in your corner that is ready to revive it and has the attitude that no deal is dead enough, which is our attitude at Transworld and at UFG. We're relentless in pursuing an opportunity and making and re-looking at it and re-looking at it and re-pursuing the landlord and the SBA and finding alternatives to that, like the 401k rollover. You need someone like that in your corner, because especially in this environment, there's, entrepreneurs are an unusual being where we accept risk, but there's a bunch of people, as Ray talked about earlier, that are going to talk out in the world that it's not time to take risk and you shouldn't take risk, and your accountant, your attorney are paid to tell you not to take risk. And you're going to have to be strong enough and have an advocate in your corner to tell you why you should. And that's tough.
Well, one of the things we teach at the Titus Center is that franchising is about minimizing risk for prospective buyers, for franchisees and for franchisors, through building a system. Look, an hour has passed. We really want to thank all these folks who have been with us. Ray and Andy, you always do a great job, and we appreciate that. The Titus Center, TitusCenterForFranchising.com, under the conferences section, we list all of our, except for yesterday's when we had a technical glitch. Sorry about that, Jessica and Andy. But we post we will post this recording. You're welcome to it. I see Ray mentioned that Paul Bosley is with us, and so is Jeff Sieber, who the 401k over guy at FranFund. Both of those guys, along with others on here, are Bob Jones. They are members of the Titus Center Advisory Board. And if you're interested in our advisory board, we're planning to meet again in November live on the PBA campus in West Palm Beach. We always invite guests to join us. Dina Dwyer Owens is going to be our speaker in November. We're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to the new normal that we will have on our college campus, and the new normal that all of you are going to embrace. Anything the Titus Center can do to help you, please let me know. Keep in mind, we will do some future conferences. I need to help my students find jobs, my graduates find jobs, and of course, we're going to do the pitch that we're going to help franchisors who have an idea or they've got an existing business and they want to pitch to look for a partner like an Andy or a Ray as they go forward, or they want an acquisition, or they need some good advice on how to build their franchise better. We're doing our own version of Shark Tank in the future, and we look forward to having you involved in that. If you want to pitch, let me know. If you want to be a franchise advisor, financier, let me know that as well. God bless you all. Stay safe, and look for our next conference. Thanks again.